On this journey of truly understanding yourself and coming into self-realization, you must recognize the ego and the ego's nature. The ego has a yearning, a desire, a base instinct to want to control everything. Whereas consciousness, on the other hand, understands that it does control everything. You see the difference? The ego wants to control everything, even everything outside of all that is in your control directly, whereas consciousness understands that it does control everything because you ultimately have say over how you perceive everything that happens outside of what you can control directly. So the ego comes from a place of lack, comes from a place of survival and a basic instinct of wanting to control everything and not having the faith and the understanding that by way of consciousness, you ultimately control everything by being in control of yourself. And so the ego tends to want to control and dictate everything that appears to be outside of yourself. And it wants to be in direct control of things. And because it is impossible for you to be in direct control of particular things, say, for example, other people and what they do, then things like judgment, shame, looking down on other people often comes into play when people are thinking about how they live their lives and their morals versus how other people are living their lives. When in fact, how other people live their lives has nothing to do with you. And so when we get into looking at things like judgment and shame and even using particular tools like religion to essentially be a mechanism by which we really mask what's going on in our ego, right? And we're using certain things like religion to essentially say, okay, this is why I'm judging you because of this belief system, right? And again, our belief systems as things that we were taught are truly programmed in the ego by way of the subconscious mind. And so what's important for you to understand is that when it comes to this desire to control, it is coming from a lack of understanding. It's coming from a lack or really a separation of self, true self, from the reality that you are one with everything else. And just like ego and consciousness are two perspectives or two sides of the spectrum of the oneness that is all things, consciousness recognizes that oneness, whereas ego recognizes or lives in a state of separation or this desire to be separate because that's his nature. Now, why is it its nature? Because as we are here as physical beings, we are essentially looking to protect this physical expression of life, this physical body. We're looking to protect the ideas and the programs that were given to us. And we think that if those things are manipulated or changed because we identify with the ego, right? We think that who we are is in question. And we're not truly secure in this understanding of self. Whereas when we think about consciousness and understand consciousness as our true self, then all the other things that were programmed within us, your belief systems, your morals, all those things begin to fall away. And many of us find that difficult to do because we truly don't understand the power of being the observer, the power of being the one who witnesses all of your thoughts, your emotions, right? But more so, people are attached to those thoughts, emotions, and beliefs, believing that they are them, right? That those thoughts and emotions are you, but they are not you. This is why it's important to understand that your thoughts, your emotions, they change. With your emotions, you're going to have moments where you're feeling happy, and then randomly you're going to feel sad. And just like your emotions come and go and fluctuate, sometimes with reason, sometimes without reason, your thoughts do the same thing. trying to maintain a single thought on a single thing is very difficult to do. And so this is why you practice things like meditation and mindfulness to recognize and observe the thoughts that are floating through your mind constantly, randomly, understanding that there is no true control. The only control you have is pulling back from those thoughts, those emotions, and understanding that they are just expressions of the ego, right? Expressions of the subconscious mind. And when you recognize that and you can pull yourself away from it and observe it, then the observing part is the part that is truly you. That is the part that you wish to be led by along this journey of life. So understanding that your desire to want to control things is coming from identifying and living from and being led by the ego. Whereas when you're a person of faith and understanding, even though you are moving with intention to create things that you desire, when you are moving with the understanding that this is, right, whatever you desire, it is already in your mind and in your heart. Therefore, you don't have to feel desperate or intense about the desire to make it so. You don't have to want it, right? You simply desire it and you decide that it is. And you take action based on that decision. Thus, that's how it manifests itself, because you have come to a clear decision which is based on faith, not based on the desire to control. You see, so the desire to control comes from the lack of faith. It comes from a desire to want to separate yourself from your truth. Whereas when you are connected with consciousness, there is no desire or wanting to be in control. You understand how you are already in control. And then that's where the faith comes in, because you recognize that though you may not have the answers to how you get from point A to point B, you know that there were different aspects of yourself that will reveal itself, right? Will reveal the actual next processes by which you obtain and come into understanding as to who you are, but also the things that you desire. So you have to recognize and you have to let go of this wanting, because that wanting to be in control is really a mechanism and an expression of the ego. So what happens is the impact of this wanting to control things actually causes more harm than good, because you're not flowing with the natural flow per se of who you truly are, consciousness. Think of it as a river. A river just naturally flows. And when you are wanting that river to go a particular direction, and you're basically subconsciously placing bricks and logs in front in that river to try to direct it, essentially it just backs up the river and it creates more of a dam, and that creates a flood, right? Or eventually that river ends up going above the rocks, right? Or going above the logs that you have placed in front of it. You have to recognize that there is a slow aspect to this, and there is a rapid, fast aspect to this self-realization that you're on. Either way, you're going to get there. Either way, the river is going to get to the destination that it is naturally gravitating towards. Your job, though, is to not resist against that. So don't follow the ego in trying to place everything in its perfect place that you believe is supposed to be, when everything is already in place naturally for you to actually achieve the thing that you desire. You just have to have faith, trust consciousness, and allow yourself to go in that natural flow of the river. Go in that natural state of gravitation. When you are in flow with consciousness, things go according to plan, so to speak. Things go well, even when they appear to not be going well. Your job is to not slow down that process by being led by the ego, not wanting to control every single detail. The only thing you want to really understand is that by having faith and surrendering, right, to a degree, you're surrendering this desire to control. And that is essentially ironically, is how you gain the most control. Thank you so much. Feel free to go to Dr. Abundant, subscribe to my daily newsletter, and also I invite you to join me in my Conscious Creators Circle, which is a paid membership which allows you to get access to more insight plus techniques, along with coaching and weekly calls to help you be a conscious creator and thus create the reality that you desire. Thank you so much, and continue to join me on this journey. Peace and abundance always.